With the creation of Star Trek The Next Generation and the pilot episode, we're introduced to quite the character by the name of Q, but he almost wasn't to be, at least not in the pilot. Upon original consideration for the pilot, DC Fontana, a writer from the original series, was hired to write a 1-hour pilot, and that's where the storyline of Encounter at Farpoint comes from. Paramount, the studio, wanted a 2-hour epic launching for this new updated Star Trek, and Gene Roddenberry, instead of going back to DC Fontana, just rewrote the script and put his name on it with hers, adding the storyline and the character Q. Today we're going to take a look at Q and how he affected the franchise, the characters, his relationship with Picard and humanity, and why he's one of my favorite characters from the point of view of a working writer right here in Hollywood. I'm writer-producer Trader Bubba, and this is Bubba Breaks Sci-Fi.
This baby hits 88 miles per hour. You're gonna see some serious shit.
Whoa. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? What if you were unable to wake from that dream?
So say we all.
Your father was captain of a starship for 12 minutes. He saved 800 lives.
Engage.
Bubba Breaks Sci-Fi.
I love how in the first episode of Star Trek TNG, we're introduced to Q, and Q puts humanity on trial, claiming that they're a bunch of barbarians, and he tests Picard by putting him in a situation of something unknown, and how will Picard and thus humanity react to it. As these creatures are attacking the planet of Farpoint Station, Picard is forced to respond, and Q assumes that he's going to respond with violence. In fact, he even pushes Picard to just fire on these strange and unusual creatures. But Picard is calm and takes a moment not to respond to the violence that the creatures are causing, but rather he asks the question, why are these creatures causing violence in the first place? And it's that taking a moment and asking the question of why that is what separates Picard and humanity from what Q is charging them with, barbarianism. And I love John de Lancie's performance in the scene. Just look at him respond to the situation. He's smiling. He's like, all right, you guys, you clever little bastards, you done figured it out. And what's smart about this show is they introduce Q in the pilot episode, and they bring him back only about 10, 11 episodes later. And in this episode, Q is testing the crew of the Enterprise and thus humanity one more time. This time not with Captain Picard, but with Commander Riker, by giving him the ability of the Q. And this is a rather clever and even fascinating way of testing humanity through the crew of the Enterprise by giving them the omnipotent, unlimited power of the Q. What do you do with it? And Riker says, I just won't use it. I won't play along. And of course, it doesn't last long. Picard challenges Riker to say, well, if you're going to use your powers, do what you will. And watch as the crew denies the gifts that Riker wants to bestow upon them with the power of the Q. Fascinating episode, quite cleverly written, and still one of my all-time favorites. It's one of the few episodes, especially in the first 2 seasons, where you get a look inside of the characters a little bit, and it's not just a plot-driven episode. There's some fun character work here, too. But once again, this is Q challenging humanity, trying to knock them down a peg from their self-righteous, we're damn near perfect status. And he does it in a way that is both entertaining and clever. But I absolutely love this episode. It's a great episode. All the characters, this is one of the few episodes in the early seasons where every single character is given a moment. And obviously this moment with Geordi is one of Geordi's most defining moments in the series too, where he's given sight, but he gives it back. He doesn't like the cost that it takes to have normal sight. And it's a beautiful moment for LeVar Burton. It's nice to see him without the visor, if only for a minute. And it's a great moment for the character of Geordi LaForge. Well, we don't see Q again for quite some time until halfway through season 2. And this is, of course, the most famous episode. Well, one of the most famous episodes because Q introduces the crew of the Enterprise to its latest threat, the Borg. And man, I love Star Trek fans because y'all love to argue over whether Q introduced them early to the Borg or if this would have happened naturally without Q. I'm on the fence that it would not have happened without Q, at least not this fast. But once again, this is Q putting humanity in front of a pretty large and scary unknown to see how they will react to it. Will they react with violence? And Picard tries so hard to react with understanding, as he did in the first encounter, which is the encounter at Farpoint with Q. And it just doesn't work because the Borg simply do not respond. They're not there for understanding. They're not there to be heard. They're just quite simply there to assimilate and conquer. And this is Q saying, okay, all right, you guys think you're so high and mighty. How do you deal with this? Which is a little unfair when you think about it, because they weren't supposed to be, Guinan even says that they weren't supposed to be introduced to this threat for generations or something, right? And they got introduced to them early. So Q really puts them in an unfair position here. And what is the point of all this? What is it that Q is trying to impart upon Picard, and that's us as humanity?
Another man would have been humiliated to say those words. Another man would have rather died than asked for help.
But I think the lesson could have been learned without the loss of 18 members of my crew.
It's not safe out here, but it's not for the timid.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button. I post videos weekly, and I tell you, I also do some pretty up-to-date Hollywood news, especially with Star Trek and other franchises. So subscribe. It's free.
That scene really reminds me of almost the Bible. Humble yourself before God and give glory to him. That's basically what Q is almost saying there. Well, you really had to humble yourself and ask for my help in this situation. And once again, he's really trying to knock Picard and humanity down a peg and remove them from their high, mightier than thou, self-righteous pedestal. It's a very interesting dynamic. And it would be a whole year before we got to see Q again, returning in the season 3 midpoint episode where Q is turned into a human as punishment for being a dick in the Q continuum. This is an interesting sort of swap, if you will, because now it's not Q testing humanity, it's humanity testing Q, saying, okay, Q, you think you're so much better than us. Can you even handle being us? And they go so far as to give Q back problems, which I absolutely adore, because it's the little things of life that really can get you, right? It's bad enough, it's bad enough that we're dealing with this crazy situation in space, but my back is also hurting, and it's always that straw that breaks the camel's back, right? And giving that to Q is something I've always just found hilarious. Almost every other episode with Q, it's Q teaching humanity a lesson, but in this case, in this episode, it's great because it's time for Q to learn something about humanity. And he doesn't do it through Picard as he usually does. He doesn't even do it through Riker, whom he enjoyed playing with in the first season. He does it through somebody who has no emotions and really isn't quite human himself. He bonds with Data. And this is an intriguing relationship because Data wants so badly to be human, and Q is turned into one as a punishment. Can you imagine? Just, I don't know, whatever your dream is. So for me, I'm a writer-producer in Hollywood. Let's say, you know, Paramount comes knocking and says, hey, we want to make your dream project for $80 billion. That's a dream come true. And what if somebody else comes along and says, man, I got to work with Paramount. They're giving me $80 billion to do my project. And they're acting like it's a punishment, right? So I love this episode because this is Q learning the truth of humanity and what it means. And most importantly, what it means to be human is, quite frankly, putting others first, right? It's the classic lesson. It's Data, of all people, that teach Q what it means to be human, to sacrifice yourself and put others first, because Data risks his life to save Q. So when this alien entity that's coming to attack Q is about to destroy the Enterprise, Q does the lesson that Data taught him, to sacrifice himself in order to save the Enterprise. And that was the lesson that apparently he was supposed to learn from the beginning, as the Q continuum comes and rewards him for his sacrifice by giving him his power back. Now, we'd have to wait 2 years before seeing Q again. He doesn't show up in the next season, in season 5, but he does show up twice in season 6. Kind of makes up for it, because he makes up for it in whatever episode where this young Earth girl turns out to be a fellow Q member. It's a fun episode. It's interesting. Not really the best when it comes to Q, but a few episodes later, Q would return in one of my all-time favorite episodes, Tapestry. I covered this episode in my deep dive on Captain Picard, the Picard Paradox, and I talk quite a bit about this episode, but it's in this episode that Q has a lesson for Picard once again, and that lesson is quite simply, if you have regrets, don't, because your past is who defines you and what makes you who you are now. And since you keep besting me as who you are now, what were to happen if you didn't have any regrets and you made all the perfect decisions? I'm going to cheat a little bit and show you a short clip from my deep dive on Picard called the Picard Paradox. Take a look. Moments as a character come out because of, quite frankly, his biggest arch nemesis, which is Q. It's Q that really brings out the most in Picard, and it's fun. It kind of reminds me of Batman and the Joker in a much lighter fare, obviously. But they really are the yin and yang, with Picard being the staunch, sort of conservative, private man, and Q being this wild card that forces Picard to actually have discussions and talk about things like, in this particular episode, regret. This episode is built around Picard's youth as a wild man and the young ensign sowing his oats, and Picard having regrets about his actions in his youth and not feeling disciplined. And of course, it's in this lesson that Q teaches him that your past is who makes you who you are. So much so that when Captain Picard goes to fix the decisions that he felt was wrong in his past, he comes back and he's a lieutenant junior grade science officer who nobody notices or cares to even promote, I guess. But there's a valuable lesson in here of honoring your past and your past decisions, because it's our decisions that drive us and our past that defines us, but it's what we learn from it and how we choose to move forward with our past mistakes and not mistakes, the good and the bad, taking everything, putting it together, and learning everything we can from our constant decision making to be a better person in the following day, year, and years to come.
Special shout out to today's sponsor, TraderBubba.com, where you can buy this shirt that I'm wearing right now. TraderBubba.com, home to all the official merch for Bubba Breaks Sci-Fi. I got all sorts of fun stuff on there. Proceeds don't go to me or the YouTube channel. It's all for a good cause. So take a look at TraderBubba.com. Use discount code YouTube to save 10% off your first order.
And finally, we're brought up to the finale of Star Trek The Next Generation, the episode that, set the bar high, not just for Star Trek, but all of television in terms of how to really properly pull off a final episode. Q really puts Picard to the test in this episode, almost to the breaking point.
What about my crew? The anomaly, my ship, my crew. I suppose you're worried about your fish, too.
So this is an incredibly interesting take on the character of Q, because this is it. This is his last outing, and everything he's done over the years with the crew, the Enterprise, Picard, humanity, it all comes down to this. And it's sort of Q's final warning, if you will, friendly warning almost, of, are you truly prepared to handle what comes next in the exploration of the unknown?
That is the exploration that awaits you. But charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
And this episode has that wonderful time paradox, too, where Picard believes that Q is the reason for the end of humanity and this sort of time paradox, but really it's Picard, and Picard is forced to realize that he is stuck in this sort of temporal paradox.
We set everything in motion. It's like the chicken and the egg. Will, the chicken and the egg.
To get a little more scientific and less fantastical, tachyons are particles that travel backwards in time, and what he's saying is that the future Enterprise using a tachyon beam is having an effect in the past, but Picard initiates the tachyon beam as a response to Q, causing Picard to travel through time. So it's this temporal paradox that he gets stuck in.
He's describing a paradox.
Yes, right, that's it.
So in a strange way, this was all Q being friendly and helping Picard, and thus humanity,
We wanted to see if you had the ability to expand your mind and your horizons. And for one brief moment, you did.
When I realized the paradox.
You were open to options you had never considered.
Very intriguing, a very Loki type, chaos character. So intriguing, so well written, so well performed, so well executed. There will never be another character like Q. And it was really Q that defined Star Trek The Next Generation.
Star Trek The Next Generation was groundbreaking on so many levels, not just for special effects, but for writing. And a lot of that came from the episodes with Q. It was Q and his fantastic powers that made anything possible in terms of storytelling, from time travel to meeting the Borg, all sorts of fun stuff. But it wasn't the powers that made the character interesting. It's what he did with them and the lessons that he tried to impart upon Captain Picard and humanity. Q was so popular a character, he appears in Star Trek Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and he's the only character to show up in all three. I'm not counting Riker because that was technically Thomas. Special shout out to my channel members. I couldn't make this video without you. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can subscribe for free. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube channel member or a Patreon backer, you do get exclusive access to videos. On Sundays, I do my Sunday Stupid, where we talk about my favorite, least popular episodes of our favorite shows and movies. And I've got some exclusive content on Patreon as well that YouTube will never allow me to post. If you become a YouTube channel member, you do get a code to access the Patreon videos as well. So consider joining. Guys, I'm writer producer Trader Bubba. Thank you so much. Don't go away just yet. I got another video popping up right here. And this video is gonna make you just feel the tingly feels.
See you